Shalom, friends. Welcome to another Shear in Talmud. We're studying Masechet Berachot, blessings, and we're using the Koren Talmud Bavli, as you can see in front of you. My name is Eliyahu Shear, and I'm coming from Chesed Be'emet. My site is www.lovingkindness.co, and I'm broadcasting from the holy city of Yerushalayim. So, as you can see, we have this very beautiful edition of the Talmud in front of us, where we can follow along and see the original text as it appears on the side of the page. We can see the translation together with some notes, and additional notes and photographs and images help us to understand the text a little bit easier. So whatever I'm reading over here, please follow along in the translation and the notes as we go through it at your own pace as I'm reading, and you can follow along. So we got to last week, we were on actually Daf Yud Amud base. We read just the top part of the page last week, and that's where we left off. And basically the story goes that King Chizkiyahu and Yeshayahu the prophet were supposed to meet up, and each one claimed that the other should approach the other one. In other words, King Chizkiyahu said that the prophet Yeshayahu should come to him, and the prophet Yeshayahu said that King Chizkiyahu should come to him, and none of them were going to meet each other. As a result of this, Hashem brought a compromise between the two, and he forced them both to meet each other. And he did this by making King Chizkiyahu ill, and then commanding the prophet Yeshaya to go through and to inform him the reason as to his illness. And the story goes that King Chizkiyahu said that basically he wasn't going to get married and have children, because he knew that in the future he could see with his divine inspiration, with his Ruach HaKodesh, that he was destined to have evil children, namely his son being Menashe, who would become the evil king Menashe many, many years later. So the prophet Yeshayahu goes to King Chizkiyahu and he tells him the bad news. I'm afraid to tell you that God has instructed me to tell you that your lifespan is over, and it's time for you to leave this world. You may as well get your life in order. Tell the rest of whoever it is who you're connected with that you're about to leave this world, and you're going to die. He asks him, why is he going to die? And he tells him, because you didn't fulfill the mitzvah of Priya Revia. You didn't fulfill the mitzvah of having children, which is what God wants. God wants a world filled with people. So King Chizkiyahu tells Yeshayahu that he knew that he was going to have this evil child, and therefore he decides he's not going to get married, and that's the reason that he didn't have children. So anyway, at this point in time, he realizes his mistake, and he says to the prophet Yeshaya that ultimately he should leave him alone, because he has a tradition that if a person does Teshuva, anything can change, which means to say that even if there is a sword that is upon a person's neck, and it is destined that the person is going to die, God forbid, through this terrible death, it could be that even if a person does Teshuva at that moment, that for some reason the whole din is changed, the judgment is changed, and the person will not die from this particular death. And of course, the prophet Yeshaya doesn't believe him, and he goes off on his own tangent, and he's very upset with him. But King Chizkiyahu tells him this is his tradition in his family. And then we continued with this teaching at the top of Daf Yud Amud Beis, which says, Omar Rabbi Hanan. Rabbi Hanan taught that afilu bal hachalomot omer lo la'adam lemachar hu meis, that even if the being who is in charge of dreams, as is translated here, an angel, omer lo says to him la'adam, to a person, lemachar hu meis, tomorrow he's going to die, which means even if a person has a dream, and in this dream, he can clearly see that there's a vision of a malach, an angel, a being that's telling him, I'm afraid to say, but tomorrow you're going to die. You better get your things in order. Al yimna atzmo min harachamim. A person should not hold himself back from mercy. He shouldn't believe that the Baal HaChalomot is telling the truth, because it could be that when a person does tshuva, he can change anything around. Even if it's been decreed a decree for a person, a terrible decree for 70 years of his life, even the decree of death, it can be torn up in 1 second through the power of Teshuva. Teshuva, of course, is another subject altogether that we have to study together. How does a person go about doing Teshuva? The Rambam discusses this. We're not so far away from Rosh Hashanah in just a few months from now. It's not very far away. And of course, we have to understand what it means to do Teshuva. And the Rambam explicitly tells us exactly what this path is. But wherever a person finds himself, he should never feel that he's at his end and there's no hope for him. But rather that if he does Teshuva, or whatever God wants from him to do in this Teshuva, he can change the decree for the good, even if a death has been decreed upon this person. Shene'emar. How do we know this? Because the verse says, of course, when the Gemara makes statements, we always need proof. So in this example, the Gemara gave us a particular teaching that says such and such, if a person sees this particular angel in a dream, but we need a proof for it. The proof is, the pasuk says, Ki berov chalomos v'habalim, udvarim harbei, ki es ha'elokim yira. Amongst dreams and vanities and all sorts of things, or many, many things. But the main thing is to fear God, which means to say that all of these things can come about, these vain thoughts, dreams, and all sorts of things. But if a person fears God, he can change everything around for the good. The Gemara continues. In the story with regards to King Chizkiyahu and the prophet Yeshaya, miyad, immediately, Vayasef Chizkiyahu panav el hakir v'yispalel el Hashem, that Chizkiyahu turned his face to the wall and he prayed to God. Because of course he knew that if he prays to God and he does it to Teshuva, it could be now that this decree that was saying he's going to die already, as the prophet had already prophesied, that even though he said those words, he could change it around. He had this tradition from his forefathers, and therefore it's clear if he prays now, he can turn everything around for the good. My Kir, the Gemara asked the question, what does it mean that it says wall, that he turned to the wall and he davened to Hashem? Of course, we can learn many things from this pasuk. One thing we can learn is that when a person prays, he should always try and stand in front of the wall. He shouldn't have anything intervening between him and the wall. As much as possible, when a person prays, there shouldn't be anything distracting him. And so therefore, if he prays directly in front of a wall, that's the best position to have in the shul, where there's absolutely nothing that is distracting him from his prayer. So he turned towards the wall. Omar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, Mikiras libo, from the walls of his heart. What does it really mean, the walls of his heart? Well, the word kir can mean wall, and the word kir can also mean chamber. So therefore, in this particular instance, when we speak about the walls of the heart, we don't mean literally the walls, like as if there are 4 walls inside his heart, or whatever you want to say, but rather he prayed from the chambers of his heart, from the inside, the feelings that went on in his heart. Shene'emar, how do we know that? Because the pasuk says, Maya, ochila kiros libi, which means my insides, as he translates out my anguish, but most common the word may I actually refers to one's intestines, and he's referring to the pain and the shuddering, ochila, the shuddering that took place within his insides, as the verse is brought down here with regards to the prophet Yirmiyahu, kiros libi, the chambers of my heart. We see that this shuddering, this anguish, this pain comes from the chambers of the heart. And this is exactly what King Chizkiyahu was experiencing at this point in time. Let's take a look at the note. From the chambers of his heart, mikirot libo, often prayer is viewed as an act that combines the spiritual and the intellectual. There is a cognitive awareness of the necessity to turn to God in our time of need. First thing we do is we think about the importance of praying to God. When there is a pressing need, calling for a higher level of prayer, there can be an authentic call emanating from a person's very heart. As the psalmist declares, my heart and my flesh sing for joy unto the living God. So we see, number one way that a person can begin to work on this aspect of Teshuva is mentally, when he begins to think about the importance of praying to God. The other way that a person can work on himself is when it affects him so deeply that the pain and the Teshuva comes from his very heart. The Gemara continues. So we see over here that King Chizkiyahu was now praying from the depths of his heart. Rabbi Levi Omar, Rabbi Levi said, Al iske hakir. Actually, what the verse means is not that he was praying from the chambers of his heart, from the pain in his heart, but rather he was praying about the matters of the wall. What does it mean exactly, the matters of the wall? Omar lefanav, he said before him, meaning King Chizkiyahu said in front of Hashem, Ribono shel olam, master of the universe, umay shunamis shelo asta ela kirachas ketana. And just as it is that the Shunamite woman only made one small wall. We know the story of the Shunamite woman with regards to Elisha the prophet, that Elisha the prophet was a very holy man. When he used to pass by the home of this Shunamite woman, the Shunamite woman used to welcome him into his home, into her home, and she had prepared something for him so that he would have a place to stay along his journeys. So what she did apparently is she set up a kir, a wall, according to the translation over here. And you gave life to her son, which means that the son had died. And yet Elisha came and he resurrected her son. As everybody knows in the famous story in the Tanach, he resurrected the son of the Shunamite woman. Why? Because ultimately, since he was found around her home so often, and she knew who he was, and she'd called for him, she had befriended him in a certain respect, and therefore she relied upon his holiness to save her child who had died. Really, she didn't know that he was going to save the child, but she did complain to him because he was the one responsible ultimately for giving her this child, of giving her a blessing for children. And then the child died. So she calls for the child, she calls for Elisha, the prophet, to tell him the bad news that on the one hand, he had blessed her with a child, and on the other hand, after just a few years, I don't know how long it was exactly, but the child had died. And then Elisha came by and he resurrected the child. So King Chizkiyahu says, but God, he talks to God, Ribono shel olam, you gave life to a child on account of the fact that this woman prepared a wall for Elisha. Avi Abba, the father of my father, meaning King Shlomo, shechipa is ha'hekal, that he covered the sanctuary, kulo, entirely, bekesef, with silver, ubezahav, and with gold, alachas kama v'kama, all the more so, which means just as you were prepared to give life to this child on account of the fact that the Shunamite woman had prepared this wall, this particular room for Elisha to come to, surely you should give me life also on account of the merits of my father's father, meaning King Solomon, who had prepared the beautiful sanctuary with gold and silver. Zechor na es asher isalachti lefanecha be'emes, ubelev shalem, v'atov be'enecha asisi. And therefore the apostle comes to say over here, remember please, or remember now, that I have walked in front of you. Basically, this is what King Chizkiyahu is saying to God. He's saying, remember what as I walked in front of you, be'emes, in truth, ubelev shalem, and with a complete heart, v'atov be'enecha, and the good in your eyes, asiti, I have done. Remember the good that I've done also, just as you can remember each one to the other. Remember the Shunamite woman. Remember the child of the Shunamite woman who has died. Remember the story with Elisha and all the things that took place. And you ultimately gave life again to this child on account of all the merits that took place here with regards to the story of the Shunamite woman. So to see the good path that I've walked in, and therefore give me life as well. I regret that I wasn't going to have children. I regret the fact that I didn't get married and that I was going to have children. And then I didn't have children. The Gemara asks, what does it mean? V'atov be'enecha asisi, I did good in your eyes. What was the good that King Chizkiyahu is telling Hashem about that he did, that he is now asking for the fact that God should remember him? Omar Rav Yehuda, Omar Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, Shesamach geula l'tfilah. The thing that he did good is that he joined the redemption to prayer. Remember what we said before when we were beginning this Gemara? We started speaking just a few pages ago about the importance of joining the geula to tfilah. Baruch atah Hashem Gaal Yisrael, and the Gaal Yisrael must come immediately before the Shmona Esrei. Well, King Chizkiyahu was very careful that he would join the Geula to the prayer, and so therefore he asks Hashem to remember him on account of this. Rabbi Levi said, you know what the good was that he did for Hashem? Shegana Sefer Rufuot, is that he hid the book of healings. There was a book in those days which shared all of the healings for all types of sicknesses. Now let's just take a look at exactly how that came about. According to Rashi, the reason for this is clear. As long as the book of cures was available, people would not turn to God in prayer, but would use the medication prescribed in the book of remedies instead. Chizkiyahu's act was meant to renounce the physical benefits in the book because of the spiritual cost to the people who no longer turn to God in prayer. According to the Rambam, however, the book merely contained ineffectual charms. He maintained that it was because of the people's reliance upon these nonsensical beliefs that Chizkiyahu suppressed the book. So whichever way we look at it, there was this book which apparently gave the cure for every possible disease. And since it was that people would rely upon the book for whatever disease they would have, they would just consult and see what was written in the book, and they know what to do to heal themselves. They would forget that God exists. They wouldn't have to pray to God, just like in our times as well. Many people lack belief in God because they believe in science. So, for example, when it comes to a sickness that comes about, if they can go to the doctor and the doctor can prescribe a particular medication that heals them, so they put their faith in the medication instead of putting their faith in God. Well, of course, God gives natural remedies within creation, which the pharmacist and the doctor put together in order to heal the body, and they understand how everything works. But ultimately, it is God's power that causes the person to heal. So the moment a person forgets that God is in charge, there's a danger within the medication. And this is what happened in the days of King Chizkiyahu. There was a book of Rufuot, and in the book, one could find a healing for every disease. But as a result of that, people stopped believing in God. So King Chizkiyahu took this book and he buried it to make sure that there was no way that anybody would find this book again and be able to find a way to heal themselves from every single disease. And as a result, people would have to become closer to God. They have to believe in God and to realize that healing doesn't come from books. Healing comes from God ultimately. And of course, if a person wants to take a medication, by all means, take the medication. He sees the doctor prescribes it, the pharmacist produces it, hands it over to him, he purchases it, and it works. The headache tablet works, and the pain tablet works, and the stomach ache tablet works. And all of these tablets work, and they heal a person and keep him healthy. But ultimately, a person has to constantly remember that it is because of God's power that the healing works, not because of the medication. It is God's power within the medication that brings a person healing. To such a degree, if a person wishes to, he may even recite a small prayer that before he takes the medication, he should say, please God, may it be your will that you heal me through the medication that I'm about to have. In this way, he brings the two concepts together. One, he believes and he thanks the medical world, the scientific world, the pharmacist for putting this medication together. And two, he thanks and acknowledges God for bringing this all about, that this medication should take care of his needs. Because in a natural world, it could be that God will heal a person. But of course, if a person is not feeling right and he does take the medication will help. But let us thank God for the medication, meaning that he gave us the ability to have the medication, and therefore the medication works from God's power, so we thank him for it. Please God, may it be your will when I take this medication that it should heal me and it should fulfill your desire so that I may continue to serve you with a great amount of strength. So this apparently was a good thing that he hid this book. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Shisha Devarim Asa Chizkiyahu HaMelech. Chizkiyahu the king did 6 things. Al Shlosha, on 3 of the things that he did, Hodu law, they agreed with him, which means to say that the sages agreed to 3 things that Chizkiyahu had done. V'al Shlosha lo Hodu law, and on 3 of them they didn't agree with. Well, we can't expect everybody to agree with everybody else's opinion. So Chizkiyahu did 6 things, and the sages agreed, and they said, that's great on 3 of them. And 3 things that he did, So the sages said, we don't agree with. We don't like what he did. Al shloisha hodu lo, on 3 things they agreed to him. What were they? Ganaz, or even better, not only did they agree, but you could even say that they appreciated. Ganaz sefer rufot. Number 1 is that he hid the book of healings, as we just said. V'hodulo, and they agreed to that. They said, very nice, thank you very much for that you've hidden this book of healings. Kitais nechasha nechoshes, he crushed up the copper snake, v'hodulo, and they thanked him and they agreed. Very nice, thank you very much, King Chizkiyahu, for doing this. We're talking about here the copper snake that was made by Moshe Rabbeinu. We remember the story that there was a plague in those days, and Moshe produced this copper snake, which he then placed on top of a pole. And he said to everybody who was sick, if you're sick, face towards the copper snake, and then you will be healed. So people used to face towards the copper snake, and as a result of that, they were healed. But what it started becoming, as in all things related to idolatry, is that people didn't realize what the whole message was. The message was to look at the top of the pole and be reminded of God who exists above. It just happens to be that there is the snake at the top of the pole. Why is there a snake? All right, we have to discuss that as a separate question to itself. It is interesting to note that in the medical profession, if you have a medical alert or whatever it is, a bracelet that you wear around you, you'll notice that within the medical profession on various things, there is indeed a snake as a symbol that appears on medical documents. And of course, this is hinting to the copper snake that we're talking about over here. Well, when one believes in the snake as the means for healing, that's the danger. So when King Chizkiyahu saw that people were using the snake as a means for healing and they believed in it, it became an idolatrous thing. So he crushed the snake, and the sages agreed with him on that. They said, very good, thank you very much. You've taken away an aspect of idolatry in this world, that people believe if you just look at a snake, then you'll be healed. And of course, they were healed. But the problem was they missed the message. The message was to see the snake that was pointed in the direction on top of the pole towards God. And that's where their thoughts should have been. Geirer atzmos aviv al mitzah shel chavalim v'hodulo. He dragged the bones of his father, who was, of course, King Achav, the evil king Achaz, the king Achaz was his father. And he was a very evil king, and he dragged his bones when he died upon a bed of ropes, and they agreed to this, which means to say that it was quite demeaning, and it was a good thing that he did this, even though one could think that perhaps on the level of kibud av v'ayim, in the mitzvah of honoring one's parents, he certainly didn't do anything that honored his father. He did something quite derogatory. But in this particular instance, he did it in order to show a message, to teach the people a message that this was an evil king and one should not follow in the ways of his father, King Achaz. V'al shosha, and on 3 of them, lo hodu lo. The sages did not agree to what he had done. Satan me gichon, he closed off the gichon waters, v'lo hodu lo, and they didn't agree to that. Well, what happened over here? Let's take a look at the background. The me gichon, the stopping up of the waters of the Gihon, the pool of Siloam, was connected to the excavation of the famous tunnel in the mountain, nearly 0.5 kilometer in length, that was used to bring water from the spring into the city. This feat was an enormous undertaking, which required a massive investment of resources and effort. It is conceivable that the sages of the generation doubted that the results justified the work invested in building the tunnel, and therefore opposed the stopping up of the waters of Gihon. So they didn't like what he did about this stopping up of the waters. He cut off, in other words, the doors of the sanctuary, and he sent them to the king of Assyria. And they didn't agree to that. Iber Nisan ben Nisan, he impregnated Nisan in the month of Nisan, and they also didn't agree to that. What is this talking about? Well, in this particular situation here, we know that the Jewish year consists of a certain amount of days. We have that we have the solar year and we have the lunar year, and there's a difference of 11 days between the 2 years. Now, the thing is like this. Every couple of years, every 3 years, whatever it is in the cycle, an extra month is added in order to make the two years, in other words, the solar year and the lunar year, be in sync with each other. The reason for this is because it says that, for example, when it comes to the festival of Pesach, that Pesach is always celebrated in the month of Aviv, in the month of spring, because that is when we came out of Egypt, in the month of spring. God wants us always to celebrate Pesach in the month of spring, which is the time that we came out of Egypt. But if we continue the lunar months in an order that continues on and on and on and on, then every few years, let's say, for example, every 3 years, what will happen is the festival of Pesach will keep falling 1 month behind. And as a result, after 3 months, 4 months, and 5 and 6 months, what will happen now is that eventually we'll be having Pesach in the winter months. And that is unacceptable. So the rabbi said that basically every few years, you have to impregnate a new month into the year in order to keep the 2 years in sync, the solar year together with the lunar year. Now, the thing is like this. When it comes to the month of Adar, it is permitted to add an extra Adar, which is the last month of the year, because the first month of the year is in fact Nisan, not Tishrei. Nisan is the first official month of the year. Tishrei is the first month of the year in terms of the calculation of the year. But for the Jewish people, the first month of the year is in fact Nisan, when we were freed from Egypt. So we came out of Egypt then, and as a result, Nisan is the first month of the year. So it comes out that in the month of Adar, one could add an additional month of Adar, which is the custom, as we know today, that when it comes to the end of the year, every 2 or 3 years, the next month becomes Adar Beit. Now, the problem is that King Chizkiyahu added an additional month of this Adar at the time that it was forbidden to do so. The Gemara says over here that he was Iber Nisan b'Nisan, that he added apparently Nisan in Nisan, which doesn't seem to make sense because you can only add Adar in Adar. You can't add Nisan in Nisan. And it seems to be therefore that he added the month in the wrong time period. Well, that's a big problem, of course, because if it was Nisan already, I mean, Pesach is coming in just a few days' time, you're going to make up your mind already. If you add a new month in, then Pesach will now fall out a full month later, and you're too late. You missed the boat. You should have done it earlier. And they didn't agree with him. But I'll tell you what happened, says the Gemara. Did Chizkiyahu, the great king and powerful Torah scholar, did he not know that HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim, that this month is to be for you the head of the months, which means to say that the month of Nisan is the first month of the year? Didn't he know it's already the first month of the year? Do you think, could you conceive that it could really be that King Chizkiyahu would add a new month of Nisan in Nisan, as if he didn't know which was the first month of the year, like he made a mistake? Zeh Nisan, v'ein acher Nisan. This is Nisan, and there isn't any other Nisan. How then could King Chizkiyahu make such a mistake and transgress the Torah law? Ela, but rather, this is what happened. Ta'a b'Shmuel. He made a mistake with regards to the teaching of Shmuel. Of course, Shmuel lived much later, but the principle of Torah learning still applies throughout all the generations. So the opinion of Shmuel, who is many, many years later than King Chizkiyahu, is still a valid opinion that would have taken place in the days of King Chizkiyahu, who wouldn't obviously have approved of what Shmuel said. To Omar Shmuel, that Shmuel said, Ein mabrim es hashana b'yom shloishim shel Adar. One may not impregnate, one may not add into the year on the 30th day of Adar. You may not make a new month of Adar on the 30th day of Adar. Why? Because it is fitting already to fix it as Nisan. Sevar, he held. King Chizkiyahu held, since it is and it's fitting, lo amrinan, we don't say that. What in the world is this talking about? So here's the thing. The whole thing is that one may already make the start of a month on the very last day of a month, which means to say, if we speak about the 30th day of Adar, so in those days, the witnesses could already see the new moon and they could already come to testify by the Beis Din that they'd seen the new moon. And it could come out that they could testify about the new moon on the 30th of Adar. It could also be that they come to testify on the 1st of Nisan. And of course, since this is a problem, we actually keep both days, the 30th of Adar and the 1st of Nisan, because we don't know. Could it be that maybe the witness will come and he might come slightly late and he will have missed the opportunity to turn this into Rosh Chodesh. And as a result of this whole story, it comes out that the 30th of Adar is a potential to turn already into Rosh Chodesh. Well, if it's a potential to turn into the Rosh Chodesh of Nisan, then strictly speaking, the 30th of Adar could be Nisan, in which case King Chizkiyahu impregnated the month on the last day of the month, which could have possibly been already the first day of the next month. He did something that he shouldn't have done, because in potential, it could have already have been the 1st of Nisan. What is the reason, therefore, that King Chizkiyahu impregnated the month, that he added the additional Adar on that day when he shouldn't have done so? Because he said that this principle of, since it could be that it's fitting, I don't hold by that. I hold by whether or not it really is, in fact, not whether in potential it could be so. And so therefore, as far as King Chizkiyahu was concerned, he did not transgress anything from the Torah. But nevertheless, the sages did not accept and appreciate what he had done over there, and they were quite upset about his behavior, that he had, as a result of this, made the month of Adar at a time where they believed was already the time of Nisan. We must always remember, this is a great principle in the Torah, that the Torah is given to man, and we are the ones who have to rule in the matters of Torah. The rabbis, who are qualified, of course, qualified rabbis. We're not talking about people who got a smicha and they went to a certain organization of today and they gave them a smicha quick, and then they still don't fulfill all the mitzvahs as they should. Even the rabbi didn't keep kosher properly, didn't keep Shabbos properly, and he calls himself a rabbi in the sense that he can rule on halachic matters. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about that the Torah, which we have in our hands, is given to the rabbis who are learned, who fulfill the mitzvahs, and who expect that everybody else and the whole of Klal Yisrael will fulfill the mitzvahs in accordance with what the Torah is. And they therefore teach us what the Torah is at that point in time. When they rule in a certain manner, in a certain way, that becomes the halacha lamaisa. That becomes the practical halacha. Now, the problem is over here, we had the sages and we had King Chizkiyahu. And we have a principle that when there is a majority over a minority, so we can also say that the majority have to win, because if the majority hold in a certain direction, except of course if it's in terms of committing an aveira, and that we're not talking about. But we don't mean because everybody says that something is right, it makes it right. We mean to say when the rabbis hold in a majority in terms of a halachic ruling, which is the direction that the Jewish people have to go in, and they hold that way, then we are bound by the ruling of the the rulings of the rabbi in that direction. But King Chizkiyahu took it upon himself that he's going to rule that the direction we have to take is to make an Adar, even though it's the 30th of Adar. Even though there's this opinion of Shmuel, which was surely known already at that time, that one should be careful not to go in the direction to add an Adar when it's already on the 30th of Adar. Let us just take a look at the note, because perhaps the note expresses it even clearer than what I've tried to say. On the 30th day of each month, those who witnessed the new moon would come and testify before the court, which based on their testimony would declare that day the first day of the next month. Therefore, one may not declare a leap year on the 30th day of Adar, as it could potentially become the 1st of Nisan. Therefore, the sages of Chizkiyahu's generation did not agree with his decision to intercalate the year on the 30th of Adar. Chizkiyahu held that we do not say since that day is fit to establish it as the new moon is reason enough to refrain from intercalation of the year. And that is the whole understanding behind this. There were three things that King Chizkiyahu said and the rabbis agreed to, and there were three things that he said and the rabbis didn't agree to it. Omar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yosei ben Zimra. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yosei, the son of Zimra, Kol hatole bizchus atzmo. Anybody who bases something on his own merit, it means to say, I ask God to answer my prayers because I did such and such. I base my answer. Please, God, you're going to answer me on my own merit. I did something very good. Toilin lo bizkus acherim. The Gemara says that they, meaning God, is going to base the merit of the answer of the prayer on others, not on oneself. If one says, answer me on my own merit, God says, I might answer you, but it will be on the merit of others. And anybody who bases himself on the merit of others, for example, he prays, please God, answer my prayer in the merit of my ancestors, who always fulfilled your mitzvahs. People have already gone on, passed on to the next world. They fulfilled their role. They did what they were supposed to do. We can clearly see in retrospect that they were completely tuned in with what it meant to serve Hashem. So we say, please God, answer me in the merit of my ancestors. Anybody who bases whatever it is that he's asking for, etc., on the merit of others, then God says, I will base everything on your merits, which means I will say to you, you've deserved it. When a person is humble and he bases and he asks Hashem, please answer me in the merit of others, God says, I will find how to answer you in your own merit. But when we say, please answer us in our own merit, then God says, I can still answer you, but it will be in the merit of others. The person didn't humble himself. Moshe based himself on the merit of others. How do we know that? Because the verse says, Zechor le'Avraham le'Yitzchak u'Yisrael. Remember, Avadecha. Remember, because of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Israel, your servants. Please remember it. In their merit, what happened over here? To whom you swore upon yourself and told them, I will increase your descendants like the stars of the heaven, and all of this land of which I have spoken I will give to your descendants, and they will inherit it forever. God based it on his own merit, meaning Moshe, as the verse says, here is the proof, and he said to destroy them, Lulei Moshe Bechiro, were it not for Moshe his chosen, Amad beperetz lefanav, that he stood before him in the breach, Lashiv Chamato me'ashkis, to return God's to destroy God's anger from destroying them, that he's going to destroy the Jewish people, which means to say at that point in time, God had decided he's going to destroy the Jewish people. He had had enough of them. The Jewish people were rebellious, as we know, the many stories that took place when they were going through the Midbar, when they went through the desert. We know that they did many rebellious things, complaining about all sorts of things, and eventually God turns to Moshe and he says to Moshe, you know what? I'd rather that let's do it this way. I'll destroy the entire Jewish people, basically. We can make another nation from you, but let's destroy the whole Jewish people if they become impossible to deal with. And Moshe says, no, don't do such a thing. Remember, in the merit of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yisrael, your servants, that you promised that you were going to bring this Jewish people in Yisrael into the land that you swore to their fathers. So Hashem says, you know what? At the end of the day, I accept your prayer. I answer your prayer. And I want to tell you that it's really in your merit that I'm going to stop and not destroy the Jewish people. So when we pray to God, we should pray to him in a way that we say, please help us in the merit of our ancestors. Because in the merit of others, those who already did good, who've already been proven to have achieved good in this world, in comparison to ourselves, where we're still along the path. Are we really good? Maybe at the moment. Who knows what will become of us? As we learn in Pirkei Avot, don't believe in yourself till the day you die. We have many days ahead of us, many weeks, many months, perhaps many, many years. How long will we live for? And it could be that in time we give up, God forbid, and we feel that we can't carry on anymore. And who knows what we do? At one point in time, we think that we're such tzaddikim, but as life goes on, we realize maybe we're not such tzaddikim anymore, and we go off the path completely. So we can't rely upon ourselves. We don't know where we're going to end up. But when we rely upon our ancestors who did good, so that's a reliable source to rely upon. And at that point in time, God turns to us and he says, the fact that you humble yourself and you rely upon your ancestors, I find merit for you. And therefore I can answer your prayer in your very own merit, because I can see in your humility that perhaps you don't even see how great you really are yourself. It's an amazing idea that when we look at ourselves in terms of others who have achieved so much more than we have achieved, God looks at us and he says, you've also achieved. But when we look at ourselves in an arrogant manner and we say, God, look at all the things we've done. Haven't we done so many great things? So God says, you think you've done great things? You don't know anything yet. It's your ancestors that have done the great things. That's why you merited the things that you've merited. Chizkiyahu tala bizkut atzmo. Now we come back to the story. Chizkiyahu based everything upon his own merit, diksiv, as it's written, which means to say, if we go back before, King Chizkiyahu says, God, please save me. Don't let me die. Please give me life. I don't want to die yet. And what did he say? He said, Zechorna et asher hisalachni lefanecha. Remember now, or remember please, that I walked in front of you, meaning I did it. He based it upon himself. Talu lo bizchus acherim. So God based it upon the merit of others. How do we know that? Sheneemar, as the way of the Gemara is. First it tells you an answer, and then it tells you the proof as to how it got to that point. V'ganesi ela'ir. And I will protect the city, Hazois, this city, Shear, to save it. Meaning to say, I'm going to answer your request, King Chizkiyahu. Lemani, for my sake, meaning for God's sake. Uleman David avdi, and I'm going to do it for the sake of David, my servant, who is ultimately your great-great-grandfather. So I'm going to say to you, I'm going to answer your request. But I'm not answering it because of you. I'm answering it because of me, and I'm answering it because of King David, your forefather, your ancestor. And therefore we see that God turns to King Chizkiyahu and he says, you don't have really any merits. It is all dependent upon the merits of your ancestor or your ancestors. And this is what the teaching is with regards to Rabbi Yehoshua, the son of Levi. How do we know that? To Omar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, my diksiv, what does it mean that it says, Hine l'shalom mar li mar, behold, for my peace I had great bitterness. And we'll carry on reading over here in the translation, but you have in love to my soul delivered it from the pit of corruption, for you have thrown all my sins behind your back. Even at that time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent for King Chizkiyahu peace, marhu lo, it was bitter for him. Why was it bitter for him? Because he realized that his tefillah was only being answered ultimately in the merit of King David, his father, and because Hashem wanted it to be that way, but not in his own merit. He thought that he'd be answered in his own merit after all. He thought he was a good guy, walking in God's ways. Well, he was an exceptional guy. Now, of course, this is King Chizkiyahu. He was an exceptional, great man. He could have been Mashiach, as the Torah says to us. He was exceptional. He was not a small man by any means. But it doesn't matter who one is, because whoever one is, the greatness in a person is when he humbles himself and he's able to say, the reason that I'm achieving these things in my life is because of my ancestors. You know why I'm wealthy? Not because of my own brain, not because of my own strength, not because of this and that, because of my ancestors. I attribute all this wealth because my ancestors did the right thing and God is giving reward to his descendants. I'm humble. I don't think of myself as being in charge, that I'm the one that has achieved it. You know why I'm a successful Torah scholar, a person might say to himself? Not because of my efforts, not because of the fact that I sit and study for 18 hours a day, and I don't sleep much, and I make sure that there's no distractions, and I. The God says, you're nothing. The reason that you're successful in your Torah studies is because you had a great-grandfather who himself put in so much effort. And because of him, I'm giving you reward. When we base ourselves humbly and we say on the fact that it was my great-grandfather who studied Torah, and it must surely be that God has found a way to reward him through allowing his descendants to be successful in Torah, then God says, you know what? You are successful because you are putting the effort in. And that's the attitude that we need to take. The Gemara continues with our story, the same idea. The Gemara says that this Shunamite woman prepared for Elisha the prophet a aliyah in a small kir. Now the word aliyah refers to an attic. Kir can refer to two different things. One thing it can refer to is a wall. We have a problem. If it says that the Shunamite woman had prepared an aliyat kir, it sounds to me that she'd prepared a wall in an upper floor for Elisha to go and spend his time at when he had passed through the area of the Shunamite woman. The whole thing is that whenever Elisha would pass through this area, he needed a place to board and lodging. And the Shunamite woman offered this place to him. She prepared a chair, she prepared a table, she prepared a lamp, and she prepared a bed. And when Elisha would pass through, he would have this place that was prepared for him where he could sleep on the bed, he could sit on the chair, he could have the lamp, which would illuminate the scroll in which he was learning from, and place the scroll upon the table and study Torah. This is all that Elisha the prophet needed in his journey. He didn't need a fancy TV. He didn't need to watch TV. He didn't need a jacuzzi. He didn't need anything fancy on the side. He needed a bed. He needed a table, a chair, and a lamp. And that's all that a person really needs to live the life that God wants him to live. Of course, he needs other additional things. There's no question about it. But as his goal in life, the goal in life is to accumulate the knowledge which allows one to serve God through everything that one learns about. That is the goal of life. I'm studying Torah in order to put it into practice. And the more free time I have, the more I'm able to put into studying Torah to learn how to practice the Torah even better. For somebody like the prophet Elisha, his whole life was about studying Torah and putting it into practice. What he needed is a place of board and lodging that he could sleep and he could study Torah. And this lady prepared in her house this particular thing which she called aliyat kir, a attic wall, whatever that means. Yeah, it's translated as a small chamber on the roof. And there, as you see, the pasuk says, and let us place a bed, table, stool, and candlestick for him there. And it will be, when he comes to us, that he will turn in there. Rav Shmuel, there was a discussion that took place, an argument. Who is correct between Rav and Shmuel? Chadamar, one said, Aliyah Pru'a Hayata, that it was like an attic floor, like on the top of the home, and it was completely open. It was an uncovered second story. V'kerua, and she covered it over. For example, in modern Hebrew, we speak about a roof as being a tikra. That's the roof, the ceiling, the tikra. Kir, it has the same root in it. So kerua means that she covered it so that he would be able to go upstairs and have this room all to himself. This is the aliyat kir that we're talking about. V'chadamar, and one said, no, it didn't refer to this idea of an upper floor, an extra story which was covered, but really it was an aksadra. It was a type of a balcony. Gedoyla hayata. It was a big balcony. V'chilkua lishnayim, and she divided it, and they divided it into two. They divided this room into two, and that was what she gave up. That was her offering that she gave to him. They stayed in one side, and he stayed in the other. She gave up a fortune, and as a result, of course, she merited many great things. Bishlama, all is well and good, says the Gemara, lemanda amar, to the person that says, to the opinion that says, aksadra, that it was a balcony. Hain diksiv kir, that is to say that it's written kir. Kir means a wall. So it was a balcony. It was an area that was extra in addition to the room that they were in, and she placed a wall which separated the two areas. But to the opinion that said this was actually a second floor, an aliyah, an additional floor, my kir. What is the word kir? What does it mean? Kir usually means either a wall or it means a chamber, as we learned before in our shiur today. Shekeruha, it means to say that she built a ceiling over it, and that's what it means. Fine. Bishlama lamanda amar aliyah, all is well, according to the one who said aliyah. Hainu diksiv aliyat. That makes sense because the verse says aliyat, which means to say it was an aliyah. It was above. It was a second floor. So when it says aliyat kir, that makes perfect sense. It was the ceiling that covered the second floor. But to the person who now said it was a balcony, how does that person reconcile? How does the opinion reconcile my aliyat? How do you reconcile that with the word aliyat? Because aliyah refers to a second floor. And now you tell me really it's an aksadra. It's a balcony, which is the same floor, which is separated with a kir, with a wall. But if you have aliyat kir, how can you call it an aliyah? It's on the same level. Answers the Gemara, ma'ula shebebatim. The word aliyah does not refer to a height, going up, aliyah. When a person comes to Israel, he makes aliyah. He goes upwards. We don't mean to say that the floor that was this room that she built was on an aliyah, but rather, don't read the word as aliyat in the sense of extra floor. Read it as ma'ula, which means to say the most outstanding shebebatim. She made a room that was outstanding. It was exceptionally beautiful. And that's what it means, aliyat kir. It means to say that the wall turned the entire room into the most beautiful room which she prepared for him. And of course, one can learn from here the importance of guests, of welcoming guests into one's home. Of course, depending on how big one's home is and the degree that one can go to, but certainly there is certainly a mitzvah to accommodate guests in one's home. And not only that, when one accommodates guests, one should give them the very best, whether it's the very best food, whether it's the best accommodation, and so on and so forth. It's a very special mitzvah, haknasas orchim, welcoming guests into one's home, brought down, of course, many, many times throughout the Torah, this value. And when it comes to Shabbos, for example, the Jewish people, we know, spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of investment in having guests over on Shabbos, giving them good food, giving them a place to stay. But let's not forget, there are 6 other days of the week other than Shabbos, and many times those same guests who arrive for Shabbos should be welcome in one's home, even for those 6 days as well. Inviting guests over, having a place for them, somebody who doesn't have a place to stay, somebody who doesn't have food, is a mitzvah 7 days a week, of course, and not just on Shabbos. Yeah, as we see in this beautiful edition of the Koren Talmud Bavli, that there is a beautiful picture here that gives us more insight into the type of image that we're thinking about in our Gemara, which is the enclosed veranda, the aksadra, veranda, or as I've translated it as a balcony. This word comes from the Greek. Over here we see, which is probably aksadra. I'm not sure exactly if that's the exact pronunciation of these letters, or the Latin exedra, meaning an entrance room or a sitting room. And that is what was on the outside of the room. It was an aksadra. It was a balcony, an outside room. And then she built this wall up, stone veranda. She built this wall to make a separation so that Elisha the prophet would have a place to stay. And of course, they would have their room as well. And that was the mitzvah that she did to take care of the prophet while he was staying over as he passed through her city. Now we continue in the same story about this Shunamite woman. V'nasim lo sham mita, v'shulchan, v'kisei, u'menorah. And let us place for him over there a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp, or candles, whatever it is. We're going to put this all into the room. He's got everything that he needs. He can sit and study Torah. Omar Abaye, Abaye said, the Isema Rabbi Yitzchak. And some say it wasn't Abaye, it was Rabbi Yitzchak. Hareitze lehanos. A person who wants to get enjoyment, Yehane, let him get enjoyment. Ke Elisha, just like Elisha did. V'she'eino rotze lehanot. And if he doesn't want to get enjoyment, al Yehane. He doesn't have to take the enjoyment. Ki Shmuel haramati. For example, like Shmuel, who came from Ramah. Shene'emar Ramat, or Ramah or Ramat. Shene'emar, as it says, Uteshuva so haramasa kisham beso. And he would return to Ramah because that's where his house was. V'omer Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan said, Shekol makom she'alach sham, wherever he went, beso imo, he had his house with him. What is the Gemara talking about? The Gemara is discussing an issue of the nature of people, especially people who travel, and people are important. That's who we're speaking about, people of importance and people who travel. These people can take one of two paths. The Gemara gives them permission. Those who wish to take the path of gaining enjoyment from the hosts who host them may do so, just like Elisha did. Elisha, traveling along the way, needed a place to stay, and he was welcome in the house of the Shunamite woman, where he had a bed, and he had the lamp, and he had the chair, and he had the table. Everything he needed, he had at this lady's house. And he took it. Even though he was an important person, and even though he could have been very humble, and he could have said, oh, no, I don't accept anything from anybody. Oh, God forbid that a Torah scholar should take something from somebody else, especially when he's on a journey somewhere. God forbid such a thing. Oh, no, I don't take from anybody. But he did. He was a great man and a great prophet. And the Gemara says those people who wish to take his approach may do so. On the other hand, those who wish to take the other approach and not benefit from others, especially when they're on the way, may do so also. The Gemara is teaching us there's no hard and fast rule. If a person wants to be like Shmuel the prophet took nothing from anybody. As we know, before he died, shortly before he died, he had said to the nation, did I take anything from you? Did I loan from you? Did I involve myself in anything that took something, anything? And the nation responded, no, you took nothing from us. Shmuel the prophet worked in this way. He would go to various places, and when people would offer him certain things, he said, no, I'm sorry, I don't take anything. I don't take anything. And therefore, wherever he was, he took all the things that he might need with him. And wherever he was on the journey, he had what he needed with him. And if not, he returned back home again as soon as possible so that he didn't have to take from anybody. But the Gemara is pointing out that there is no one particular path in life that a person has to take. If a person, for example, is a Torah scholar and he's traveling somewhere, he is entitled, that if somebody says to him, can we help you? He's entitled to say, yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the board and lodging. Thank you for the place to stay. Thank you for the food. I very much appreciate it. Obviously, he'll give back at some point in time, just like Elisha certainly gave back to the Shunamite woman. So that's a great lesson, of course. Many people think, well, what must I give to the Torah scholar for? Let him pay for his own hotel fees, for his own lodging. Why must I help him? What a chutzpah that he should take from us. He believes that he can study Torah and then he can take from us. What a chutzpah. On the contrary, a person should realize that when he hosts that Torah scholar, he brings blessing into his home, just like the Shunamite woman brought blessing into her home. And ultimately, this resulted that even though her son died, Elisha the prophet came and he resurrected that child. That is the level that Elisha was on. He was a tremendous Torah scholar. He was a great prophet, of course. Maybe today we don't have such great prophets, but certainly in terms of Torah scholars, there are great people, and we should welcome them into our house. And we should say, especially if they don't have, come into our house. We have a place for you. We have a room for you. We have food for you. We have whatever you need. You're on a journey. Let us help you to succeed on the journey that you're on. A person may take any path that he wants to. So these are the two paths over here of Elisha the prophet and Shmuel the prophet. Both of them, of course, were prophets. And the Gemara points out that whichever path we want to be on, we can. So for those Torah scholars who believe that you shouldn't take, or we shouldn't take anything from anybody on our journeys, God forbid that we should ever take something from somebody, you may take that path. It is okay. But for those people who feel that they can't deal with that particular path, they will need assistance, they need somebody to take care of them, they need food, they can't afford the hotel, they may take the other path as well. And if somebody offers them board and lodging, or they need board and lodging, and they ask, is there anybody that might be able to help? And somebody says, yes, certainly, we will help you. He may certainly take that path. He is no less of a Torah scholar. He is no less of an important person. He is no less of a greater person, just because he took something from somebody, because he was on a journey. And indeed, we are all on a journey. With that, we've reached the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet, and you can find my site at www.lovingkindness.co. As always, if you've enjoyed the Shear, please do click on the like button. And in other words, to like this video, click on the share button to share it with family and friends. click on the subscribe button if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, and the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. If you'd like to be in touch with me, please do so by visiting my website and contacting me through the contact form. I'd be happy to discuss all matters of Torah, Yiddishkeit, life and growth, anything that's on your mind in terms of real growth and living. That's what's closest to my heart, and I'd be delighted to be in touch with you on those things. As always, I invite you to be a part of the activities that we're involved in and to become a partner by supporting what it is that we do. You can become a partner by simply subscribing and becoming a member of our site, and in that way you allow us to do more in terms of outreach and being in touch with people as we are in touch with via email and various other things. You are really the people behind us that allows us to continue to produce these shiurim. It all costs money, and whenever we can, such a shiurim like this, they're all offered at no cost to the public, and we hope it makes a difference in their lives. So you can become a part of that by supporting our activities, by becoming a regular member, and of course, by being in touch with us about anything on your mind in terms of Torah, mitzvahs, Yiddishkeit, and growth in life, whatever's on your mind. Thanks very much for joining me. I look forward to another shiur soon, and I wish you everything of the best. See you soon. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.